Almost forgot. All right. Let's go back to this commentary. So by the way, Malik, we are using uh, a document by John L. Right? It's a commentary written by him on the Golden Stairs. Yeah, so we just stopped here the last time, and let me read this again. A clean life includes speaking truthfully and kindly, acting fairly, earning a living honestly and usefully, thinking about others with goodwill, and being cheerful in the midst of problems. These are simple qualities, but the ethical life is basically simple and obvious. There is nothing secret or mysterious about it. Hmm. Yeah, I think the last session we took some time to discuss about I think a fair bit of earning a living honestly and usefully. Right? We were talking about how we should discern what kind of lifestyle and livelihood we should do. Right? Sometimes we could be involved in a certain industry that are directly responsible for damaging the earth, for example, right? Like oil and gas, drilling, or even to a certain extent, maybe the industry does touch a little bit on sustainability as well, right? Products that use plastics, right? It's not too obvious. But the thing is, there are many of us that are more concerned about different degrees of details, right? For such a hopefully or not only just honest, but more caring and loving kind of livelihood, right? And we did discuss about butchery as well, slaughterhouse. Those are the direct ones as well, and even alcohol businesses like nightlife business as well, right? So let's look at the next paragraph. Anyone would like to read this part?
Me.
Okay, actually, it's until here. Yeah.
A clean life is one in which we are free of the stains that color our vision. One of the great works of Indian spirituality is the Viveka Chudamani, the crest jewel of discrimination of Shankaracharya. It cites four preliminary qualifications for treading the path. One of the qualifications is dispassion or desirelessness, vairagya. The Sanskrit word, as is often the case in that language, reveals its meaning by its parts. The literal meaning of vairagya is colorlessness.
Thank you. All right.
Right.
So for
So
this
for
passage,
this
this paragraph,
paragraph,
I think what
I think
stood out the
what stood
most
out
to
the most
me is the color, right? Can anyone wants to have an opinion or to voice an opinion about what do we mean by the stains that color our vision? Leo?
Today is my day. Just joking. It's very interesting that they use the word color. Why? Because to me, it's very relatable if we do study the seven bodies, like the seven planes of nature, that we have the physical body, astral body, mental body, and then so on. So, except, besides the physical body, the rest of the subtle bodies, I never knew that it consists of colors and lights. if we read the books of Jeffrey Hudson, we will see that even the astral body, the aura, or even the mental bodies, they don't really give you a thoughts like a words or a sentence, but it's all manifested or represented by colors. Let's say if you are very greedy or angry, it's going to be very red colored. If you are very jealous, it's going to be the green color. So that's why I think the word colors here means more about our emotional or our emotions and our thoughts that comes from the lower mind, which is the mechanical mind. And I think most likely for the astral bodies or even the mental body, those colors stained our vision, and then our conditions as well are certain kind of like colors as well in that those kind of bodies, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry, Leo, I didn't understand very well the point. No, because I want to understand it more. When you were saying the colorless has, so because I haven't gone through this, never come to me the thing of the colors of the different planes. I think it's super interesting. And then you were saying that then the physical body, the physical plane has no color, or sorry.
What I'm saying that is that like the physical plane, on the physical plane, our body like this, we see objects. We see this bottle, we see my hands, we see the hair tie, but on the subtle planes like astral plane or mental planes, we see colors. So if you're interested in this one, you can read the book, The Astral Plane of Leadbeater, or you can read the book of Jeffrey Hudson. He talks about this. Then you will see that most of our emotions is not that it's not that I think about the emotion. Emotion is just like a color in the astral plane that it affects your physical body. I'll give you one example. This one is very relatable. So let's say I have a friend, actually two friends. They have acid reflux. Do you know that one? Stomach problem, acid reflux. Yeah. So both of them, they have that kind of problem because they're very stressed. So where's the stress coming from? From the mental body, because you think too much. Then it affects your physical body on the lower level. So it manifests as like stomach problem, something like that. So whatever we do or we think on the mental plane or astral plane, it will accordingly affects our physical body as well. Here we go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So what I understand what you say is that then exactly this colorless may be that, for example, you were saying that anger manifests as red or jealousy as green. So maybe a state of a balance or neutral color means a state of a certain harmony or not, or a disbalance. How do you see?
Yeah, I think the meaning of the colorlessness here doesn't mean that we have color. It still means that we do have colors, we are not affected by it. Just like emotions. Maybe your microphone. That means that we still have emotions, but we don't let the emotions drive our decision. So it's just like Jesus Christ or the Buddha. They went through a lot of hardships. They went through a lot of sufferings. That means that they feel cold, they feel hot, but it doesn't mean that the feeling of cold or hot will affect them. Will affect the way that they think or function. I don't know how to put it in a better way, maybe Francis.
I think what Leo meant was that they are indifferent.
Oh, yes.
They are indifferent. Like anything could hit them. Just like I think there was a famous story Like the Buddha was like sitting under the tree, just like chilling around. And then this guy came over and scolded him 1,000 curse words. And the Buddha just smiled at him. And then the guy praised him or gave him 1,000 compliments. And the Buddha still smiled at him. So it doesn't affect him at all. It's like indifferent. Yeah, Malik, you have something to say?
Yeah. It might be a little bit too annoying and technical, but I like the word stain in the first sentence because a stain kind of implies that something lingers. Like if you experience a color and emotion, it's okay if it's transient, if it kind of comes and goes. But I think stain is a very apt word because often when an emotion or color lingers is when it becomes a problem.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't think that's very technical. That's a good illustration. Thanks. Ah, anyone else before I share my opinion on this?
Fatima.
Fatima?
No, but after you.
After me, okay. So I think my understanding about uh this is that you know how we all know that each individual of us has different perspectives and perceptions, right? It's because the way we see the world is based on the conditions that we have, like whatever we've gathered since young, and even the more um, stubborn or persistent tendencies from past lives, right? It all comes in. And I think this resonates a lot with the idea of emptiness in the Buddhist tradition, right? What does it really mean by emptiness? It's not so much like everything is like there's nothing, right? Like everything is illusion, everything is everything doesn't exist, right? I think to my understanding is that everything still exists, but what all of that means to us are illusions, right? That's why like even like during the Dharma classes, my teacher always says, I think it is all about seeing the world as it is, rather than with our conditions. So I think this color, what colors our visions, or rather the stains will always be there every single day to the point probably when we are enlightened. And maybe even the colors from every lifetime, right? For every lifetime, the colors, it may not change too much if we didn't do much of any kind of learning or development or reflection or meditation or study on it, right? Because it literally means a change of perspective. That's how the color could change, right? But to be colorless is to be free of conditions, right? And what also that means is working out all the karma to the point that we are not being bounded by any kind of earthly or material affairs, worldly affairs. I think that's my take on this. So Fatima, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. I really like all the different understandings of this we are sharing. No, I just wanted to say something in the line I always commenting along this line, no? Which is that, for example, when Leo was talking about Buddha and Jesus Christ, no, and how they went through all these sufferings, but they will not align, let's say, or but still, this chapter came to me, especially Buddha. I cannot recall story like this, but Jesus, for example, when the moment when he arrived to the temple and he saw all these vendors outside, and he really went and destroyed all the things, and probably was not a vision, if this story is true, probably was not, how can I say, the idea of gentleness and kindness sometimes that we have, no? At the same time, I think with aligned with all of that you are saying, probably he was not at all angry. And also, I heard another day one comment of Pablo Sender about Blavatsky personality, because Blavatsky, everybody we know, no, she had a very strong character, and she didn't take too much care of pleasing the people in general, as we try to do right now. She was a little careless about this part. But even when she was in one of her moments of fire or something like this, apparently you could ask her anything of theosophy, she will drop absolutely all the anger she had and super kindly start talking endlessly about divine wisdom. So in the sense, like, even her being caught up by this, her real thing was not there, no? I'm just saying this because I always insist that I think on the spiritual path we cannot pretend, or we cannot also become too neutral or too, how can I say, a pretended kindness, no? I think we need to be authentic, we need to be natural, and we need to observe naturally what are the colors that we have, no? And then develop an internal attitude of, okay, I think this color is too exaggerated. I try to not totally fall into this, but at the same time, we have to be careful because we are giving a certain personality what is to be erased, what is to be, these are the tools also, no? At the same time, they can be obstacles, they can be veils. At the same time, we are all given certain specific tools, no? So, yeah, every time I read these things, the Indian approach to this, I always try also to have my, I think neutrality is a very, and indifference is horrible. I think it's even worse to be indifferent than to make mistakes. This is my own opinion for sure. I think indifference is very, a lot of cowardice behind.
I think that it really depends on what kind of stance we are having, because for sure, all of us, we have color stance in our vision, the way that we see the world. And the other factor that we need to consider as well is what ray we are. So we know about 7 rays. So for example, for my take is that maybe Fatima, maybe you're ray number 1, that you very loud and you say what you do what you say. However, if somebody is from ray 2 or from ray 4, their approach to the problem may be softer. They won't be like, okay, this and that. The approach will be different. But I do agree on one point, that it shouldn't be to the problem that indifference doesn't mean insensitive. Indifference doesn't mean insensitive. They need to be sensitive to human beings. They need to be sensitive of what's going on and what are their duties to do to help, and of course, depends on the personality, and the personality is, again, the rays that we are holding. Yeah.
Well said. I think this says a lot about this next word, discrimination. Right? I think indifference is not a bad thing, right? Indifference in a sense, like, it's not the same as non-reactive. Right? Indifferent is like, I don't have anything that I want to eat, but I'm okay to eat anything. But if I don't get what I want to eat, I will not go to the point of like like trashing everyone, not to that point. So like it doesn't. So the thing is, I think the part about indifference is like we do not get stimulated emotionally by anything that's around us. But yet, I think the famous saying from the light of the path right? Kill out all ambitions, but still work as though they are ambitious. So this is like a very contradicting, it's like an oxymoron thing. But the thing is, or paradoxical. But I think that's where the discrimination comes in, right? The discernment. Like, how do we actually know what we are doing is something that is selfless or selfish, right? I think like what Fatima talks about, observation and all this is really important. Anyone want to talk about discrimination based on this paragraph? Anyone has any? Malik. Yes.
Yeah, have a quick word. I hope this as well doesn't come across too technical, or like nitty gritty. Are you able to pull up a Google image? Is that possible? Could you look up light prism for me? It's the good old Pink Floyd album logo, and I always think of this a lot. It's like if you look at if you think of the word like colorlessness, it might sound like no colors, but if you look at light on the left side of the image, light doesn't have a color; it transcends color. So it's technically also colorless in the sense that it's not a color, but it's all color. And I've always looked at kind of enlightenment in this fashion, where it isn't essentially the abolition or destruction of all emotion, but rather the transcendent upon it. And the prison here kind of acts like life, where if you are an enlightened person, life will kind of put you in a situation in which discrimination of self might need to take place. Another really kind of interesting way of looking at this is any color like red, blue, green, or whatever, it isn't like a positive thing, as in it's like there's a source of redness and redness is kind of imposed onto the world, but rather red is everywhere, and anything that you see that's red is just a deduction of all the other colors. That's how our eyes in the world works, with color. So it's such an apt description that I was thinking about, because it almost, in my opinion, acts in this similar fashion where let's say you have an enlightened person, sometimes there might be times, almost like you see the prism here, in which the individual needs to kind of enact one of the kind of colors or emotions, like Jesus with sometimes he doesn't bring peace, but also the sword under certain necessary conditions. So I've always found that, I found what Fatima said excellent. What is kind of what I was thinking as well, that an enlightened person isn't always kind of absent of all emotion, but rather it's integrated into their being. I hope that was useful in some way. I didn't want to go off on the deep end a bit.
Oh, that's a good point. This is a good one. I think yesterday when we were at the lodge, we were discussing about, I can't remember what we were discussing about, but Simon mentioned about something about in the higher planes, it is all light. There isn't non-light anywhere in the higher planes, like probably Buddhic plane and above. It's all light. There's no differentiation. But of course, through the, how you say, involution or descending down of the planes, the light will have to differentiate. Like what you mentioned. I think that is really apt. And once it's differentiated, and as we know that the entire, I'm not sure existent would be the right word, but maybe probably the manifested reality are sort of colored by seven rays. I wouldn't want to use the word color, but it's more categorized in the seven rays. And all of these are everywhere, right? Like what you said as well. And of course, those that are more pronounced in the specific color, like red, like you mentioned, is really the non-existent of the rest. Right. And but yet again, I think in optics, I used to work in the optics industry as well. When you have an object that's red, it means that it absorbs every other color and reflects the red light off the surface. So it's like two ways to look at it as well.
Yeah, on that, it's one of the great ironies of the universe that when you look at something red, technically it's the least red thing in the room.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And you know, when I first came to understand about how astral body or astral planes is literally the dimension or the planes of colors, it got me really wondering about what what would the difference, what would color actually mean in the higher planes, right? Because the way we understand colors, the way we see it, right, just by seeing, is literally whatever that's reflected into our eyes, and then it changes into some neurochemicals or bio voltages and goes into the brain, and it starts to process. And of course, we also know that in the higher planes, the colors has more dimensions and dynamics to it. It's like when you see the red, it is not just a solid red color. There is a depth of like ethereal kind of quality as well. And it moves, right? It's not just a static color. The whole thing is dynamic all the time. And that made me think about what how can we understand colors by colors as a principle rather than colors as a quality. But that might be something for another time. All right. Oh, but thanks for bringing it up, Malik. Right. So why is discrimination important in spirituality as a whole? Anyone? Or maybe it's too obvious. How about what makes discrimination challenging? Fatima, what
Oh,
makes
sorry, it's just my connection sometimes shows is too low and turn off the camera and then I turn it on.
okay.
Sorry,
So
sorry for
now
that.
it means it's the right time for you to speak.
Oops, on discrimination, such a difficult subject.
Yes.
I don't know if I just feel that sometimes we also have to listen to not just to the mind. No, it's a typical sentence to listen to the heart and this, but sometimes I think we have to have a much more. I think the discrimination has to work on all the different planes, no? In the sense, like many times our body even is giving us awareness of things, and of things that our instinct it's talking to us, our intuition. It's very related to discrimination, and I think the intuition for each of us will speak a little in a different matter. But I just want to raise this, which I am particularly also learning now, which is that the discrimination for me is kind of like an instrument we need to tune, we need to work on, to make finer, to make to be able to perceive the different sensitivity and intuition for me are very important to build a discrimination. I think the discrimination is something that you cultivate and cultivate through incorporating knowledge and through increasing sensitivity and of course also with a good intention. Without a good intention, the pure good intention, the discrimination can be very tainted by all these colors.
Yeah, thank you. That's right. Tainted by colors again. How, Leonardus, anything to add on?
In relation to the colors and the prism just now, I feel that discrimination is choosing the shape and the color of that prism itself so that we can see what we are channeling, what how it will become, how will it react with the colors that are already there, and the shape of whether we are diffracting it, whether we are channeling us, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's not so much about like whether I do A or do B on that same plane of physical choices, but more about like how can my personality be such that it shine the most onto the current situation. To me, that's what discrimination is in this context.
Thank you. I think for me, discrimination is a lot about being able to discern between the lower and the higher self's intent. The purity. I think like what Fatima was saying is the purity of the intent, I think. And the part about intuition as well, right? I think I 100% guarantee, right? There are times that we thought that it is our intuition, but it is just the devil speaking. Right. So I think this discrimination is the part where we really look back in our lives, or even like when we are making decisions, we can only do our best to see whatever that is as little of the self as possible. Right. I think it's like what Leo was just mentioning as well. It's not just getting stuck, whatever. Really just do whatever we can do. And over time, when we are doing our study through our meditation, then we would actually be able to reflect and see and contemplate. And I think discrimination is one of the most important thing that anyone has to do. I think Krishnamurti brings this up a lot about discrimination. This is really a lot about the mental aspect. I think it's jnana, very, very much in the jnana yoga kind of thing. And of course, here we have the part about dispassion or desirelessness. Okay, now I have a question again. Why would dispassion or desirelessness or vairagya be one of the qualifications for treading the path for under Viveka Chudamani? Why is this under this? Anyone?
I can share my failures on this
Okay,
with all of you
thanks.
more than any deep reflections. No, again, all that you know me, it's so what I can share in relation also a little with one thing you were saying, the last thing of discrimination and the relation with dispassion, and for a very passionate person like me, how I make this work without, all of this. How can I use this to channelize on a sense that, so what I realize is that on the discrimination, sometimes it's a very, the selfless attitude and not only the selfless, but what is best to be done on a situation. Sometimes, for example, when you are dealing with a professional work problem, with a professional problem on the work, sometimes you are able to take a more less personalized decision, because you will think what is the best for this situation, not just the best for me or what is the other person best. Many times you are able to take it out and say what is the best solution for this situation. And even sometimes that leads you to say, okay, I'm not confronting this person, or I'm not bringing out the mistake this person did in this moment, but let's leave that for another. Let's prioritize on finding the solution, make everybody. So you are able many times to behave in a way in which the solution for a problem, or for example here, wherever in a year we are doing a work together. So you are not thinking, all of us, what is the best. So you put yourself a little, your identification with your personality becomes aside, and you are performing something and you are thinking on that best. So I think that is a way of being dispassion, in the sense I really want whatever, a project to happen, any of the things you are doing with the World Federation, you need a certain passion, if I can use these words, to say, I'm convinced this is good and this is the best, and I want to make it happen, and I'm giving my best. Rumi says, gather everything for love or leave this gathering. So I am of this kind of a school. So I think there is a passion, and I think this passion comes with, again, not thinking what is you, and that's me, my appetites, my whatever, my own anxiousness, my things, that things suddenly disappear for some moments, and you are concentrated on one service. And I think service is very interesting, because when one try to live a life aligned with an intention of service, then through that light is easier to put the passion on that and not into a personal gaining sometimes, and then you are able. Sorry, I took too long, but thank you.
No, it's not long at all. That's a good one. So I think from this, would anyone wants to talk about? Oh, all right. Okay. Oh, okay. I got a DM. But anyways, would anybody want to talk about or comment about passion, right? Do you think that is more like a personal thing, or is it a selfless or more of a selfish, or is that like a blend, like it's interweaved, or is it just strictly like personal or strictly like selfless? Right? Anyone?
Me.
Okay.
Yes, I think that when we use the words passion, at least to me, it means personal. Passion is a form of emotion. And of course, emotion is never the higher self. So when I say this passion, doesn't mean that we lose the aim or the purpose to do anything, but it's more about you have to do what you need to do, but we are not attached to the outcome. Let's say I have a project, for example, the National Youth Project. I do my best. After 2 years, I got nothing out of it. People will think Leo didn't do a good job. People may not like the youth projects. Then there will be a possibility that I feel very upset or feel sad, because I really want to make this come true. And that is where I know that this becomes personal. So I believe that anything that comes out that gives you emotion, happy, sad, frustration, upset, it all belongs to the lower self. The higher self doesn't experience or doesn't have any kind of personal feeling, happy, sad, sometimes upset, sometimes frustrated, because the higher self is the chainless one. we are the lower self, the personality. This is the one that always changes. I hope that it makes sense.
Thanks. It's a good one as well. Anyone else? Dispassion or desirelessness is vairagya, right? And vairagya, the literal meaning is colorlessness. That's an interesting one. Would anyone wants to make a connection between these two? Stains that color our vision, and dispassion or desirelessness. All right, Malik.
I was just thinking about like Buddha was tempted for 40 days, 40 nights. And I was thinking about that a couple days ago because like a temptation is kind of like it's like a fool's errand in a way where it's like a false claim to truth. And like in my life at the very least, there's a bunch of kind of fool's errands that kind of tempt me. It might be like wealth or status or just name any of the hundreds that we all have. And there's a kind of there's a question I have where it's like, well, what defines a temptation? Because what if even the desire to become enlightened is a temptation? And I think in order to determine like what a temptation is, you have to have a sense of what truth is. Like once you learn the truth, everything else becomes an illusion. But on the other side of that, because I don't know what the truth is, how do I discriminate, to use that word again, what is an illusion and what's true? So just connecting it to this, if you are enlightened and you do have the truth, any passion, I think passion's a very vague word even in English, and it's not even direct because it's a translation of a vague word, or it's a vague word that is a translation. But the general gist of it is kind of like any kind of drive or desire towards anything outside of the self or the higher self or whatever it is. Any of those drives, even ones which have the illusion of being good, are just false. And I kind of understand this connection between, like, when people say, like, when someone's in love and they're looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses, right? That's like what I'm thinking of, where that's just a very obtuse example. There might be, when someone is financially struggling, they might be looking at the world through green-colored lenses, right? And there's an infinite number of potential lenses which you could view the world through. And all of the kind of passions or things which arouse the spirit in any way other than the truth would be something that stains the vision with a color. That's like, if I could try to put out what my thoughts about this whole thing is into a kind of ad lib there.
Oh, this is really good. I think you make a good point about temptation, and it could really only be made sense if there is a contrast to the truth, right? The truth itself as that center, or like on a graph, right? You have a 0, 0. That's the main reference, and then everything else are just an illusion. And that is when you are able to see what are the things that we should not be doing, and what are the things that are temptations, and what are the things that are actually goods that move us towards one step closer to the truth. And yeah, of course, it's definitely challenging. Definitely. I find it interesting that you brought up temptation. I think I never really gave too much thought about the word temptation. It's mostly just like desires and all this, but desires is a lot more from what's inside. And temptations is like if you do have that desire within, whatever that comes to your right in front of you that matches that becomes a temptation if it doesn't serve the purpose of the good, so to speak.
Yeah, I think like it's as you said, it's almost like an antenna where you have to be like temptations have the illusion of being external, but they're really internal because like how does someone who has never done a particular drug get tempted to do that drug unless they have the kind of internal conditioning to be ready to be tempted by it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's very true. Yeah, it needs something that's from inside that could connect with whatever that's outside that's passing by to form a temptation. All right. Oh, that's a good one. Okay, I think our time is up because our next program is right after this in 1 minute time. So we could close this session. Oh, let me highlight this. Let me close this session with maybe 30 seconds of silence. Just 30 seconds, and then we will end. Hey, thank you everyone for my session. Please